Thank you very much, my brother Musalia Mudavadi. Let's take our seats. First, let me take this opportunity to thank Professor Munavu, who was the chair of this education subsector, and they have worked tirelessly, I think, for the last almost 4 months. They've been at this education subject. Professor Nkanya, my good brother Sosion, and all the other people who have participated. Professor Nguru, who is, I don't know whether he's here, but he's always been part of this team. And finally, I think we have come to the conclusion of this very important subject. And as I said earlier, this is going to be probably the most important conversation going into this election as we discuss about the economy and as we discuss about bottom-up. It is the single most important enabler for what we are going to do as a government, and therefore it must benefit from our intervention in a very significant and very profound, if I say, very profound way. We have listened to the stakeholders who have spoken. I know there are some who already put in their recommendations and memoranda, and they have been processed by the team led by Professor Munavu. Maybe I can just highlight a few areas that we have already taken a commitment as the Kenya Kwanza team. We have undertaken to the country that because we want our commitment to be different from commitments that have been made in the past, that number one, we are going to engage with the public. And I have said, as I said earlier, we've gone through the mill in every fora that we have attended around Kenya, and we have gone to close to 37 counties. We have listened to what teachers, we have listened to what lecturers, we've listened to what stakeholders are saying, and even students. And today here we have finally come to the final conversation. Let me just say a few things as I have listened on, and Dimuli and his team have spoken to this, that we all agree that our education should move in the direction of not just knowledge and exams. It should move in the direction of knowledge, skills, competencies, and value-based education. We all agree that that is the direction. We also agree that 5 years down the road, it's time to review, in accordance with UNESCO recommendations, the CBC program, so that the issues that have been identified by teachers, by parents, by students, and other stakeholders can be subjected to a robust public conversation, so that we can finally have a conversation that will lead us to ironing out the areas that are in contestation, and we can have an education system that serves our children and our requirements for the future. We have also undertaken, as Kenya Kwanza, that in accordance with, again, UNESCO recommendations on education being more than just being in a classroom. It is in the context of culture, is in the context of communities, it is in the context of customs, and that being the case, we have two things as Kenya Kwanza that we want to undertake, that we will have a proactive support for citizens or students from marginalized areas, northeastern and other marginalized areas that do not today have adequate teachers, that we will promote, we will actively provide bursaries, and we will actively provide opportunities for people from those areas, northeastern included, to join our teaching institutions and colleges so that we can promote the number of teachers coming from those areas as a means to enhancing the number of teachers from those areas, and Kenyans from other areas who go to teach in those areas will be incentivized so that they can provide teaching in those areas. We also undertake that we are going to abolish the delocalization policy as is set up now and replace it with a program that will appreciate that teachers are a national resource, and at the level of entry in employment, the nationalization agenda will be implemented at that level, and subsequently an incentive will be made available so that teachers who voluntarily want to teach outside their counties and outside their localities can be paid an allowance in promoting the national nature of our teachers, so that we can remove the current distress that is facing families and teachers who we have been given horror stories about, some of them committing suicide and that kind of thing. We have also agreed that to improve on access and quality of education, we will implement a minimum essential package for schools that have low enrollment, so that all the schools will provide the same quality of education irrespective of size. So that, and in that process, we will make it possible for even the small schools to provide the same quality of education as the big schools, and therefore create additional access where parents don't have to go looking for boarding schools or don't have to squeeze in what they call big schools because they offer a better quality of education. We will make sure that that same quality of education is available even in the small schools, so that we can encourage enrollment, especially in day schools. We also commit, as the Kenya Kwanza fraternity, that we will have a special service tariff for water, for electricity, for internet in all our learning institutions. Again, this will assist in making education affordable. We have also committing that we will work with the County Government Act so that we can make it possible for counties to deploy their resources in building schools where the public is of the opinion that their priorities is in building schools. Though the building of primary and secondary schools is the responsibility of national government, we're going to work out a mechanism so that it is possible for county governments to build schools where such is the requirement of the local communities there. We have also agreed that the current teacher continuous professional development program, which we support as enhancing the quality of delivery of education, and is a requirement that the quality of education is dependent on how much we equip the teacher with professional skills. But that improvement of professional skills will be funded by the government of Kenya instead of being funded by teachers. We also undertake, as the Kenya Kwanza fraternity, that it is necessary for us to build the capacity of teachers, as I have said, but also of managers of our teaching institutions, from primary schools through secondary schools, through TVET, all the way to university, that there will be courses for people who are managers in our school institutions or learning institutions, and we are going to convert the current Kenya Education Management Institute into a Kenya School of Education, in line with the Kenya School of Government, so that we have an institution that concentrates on ensuring that there is continuous professional development of teachers, and there is available professional expertise and education, professional equipment of our managers of our learning institutions, right from primary schools, secondary schools, and TVETs and universities, so that we can better manage our learning institutions. And there should be professional courses to enable persons hired to manage our institutions to do them better. We have also agreed that, acknowledging the current teacher shortage and the impact it is having on the quality of our education and the delivery of our education, that the Kenya Kwanza administration will, in two phases, year 1 and year 2, eliminate the gap that currently exists of 116,000 teachers. We will hire year 1 58,000 teachers, and year 2 the next 58,000 teachers, to close the gap that currently exists in our teaching institutions. We have already assessed how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost us about 25 billion shillings, and we will make sure that there is budgetary provision for this to happen. We also undertake that, and we had this conversation yesterday, we are going to have it in the disability charter. We also undertake that all our students or kids living with disability, we are going to enhance the bursaries, and we are going to expand the bursaries from the current 47,000. Our suggestion is that we need to double the number of students benefiting from bursaries, children living with disability. We've also, we also undertake and commit that we will complete the 250 vocational institutes in every ward, and the 52 TVET institutions that need to be built countrywide. We have built already almost 140 in the last 8 years. We believe that we can build the 52 in the next 2 years, and therefore make it possible for us to have a TVET in every constituency. And we have said that every TVET, alongside every TVET, we will build industrial parks, ensuring that the entire Jualakali sector and industrial parks become part of our TVET infrastructure. Let me say two final things. That, as Mwalimu Murage, Professor Murage has said here, we cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand. We have a crisis in our universities, and we have our crisis in our TVET institutions, which we must deal with. And the crisis is the underfunding of these institutions. Statistics show that of the requirements in our university education, we are funding both from University Funding Board and Higher Education Loans Board. We are funding up to almost 55% of what their requirements are. And there is no mechanism that is in place at the moment on how the 45% funding shortage is going to be mitigated or is going to be raised. And therefore, we are proposing, and this is the position of Kenya Kwanza, that to be able to, number one, effectively fund the courses in our institutions of higher learning, TVET and university, to be able to be effective in terms of funding, and to be able also to be targeted so that we fund the courses that have been assessed to be the ones that will influence our development trajectory going into the future. We are going to consolidate the University Funding Board, the TVET Funding Board, and the Higher Education Loans Board into the National Skills and Funding Council, as was recommended here. Let me repeat. We are going to consolidate the University Funding Board, the TVET Funding Board, and the Higher Education Loans Board into one body that is going to not only inform what are the skills that we want to deploy going forward, and also fund those skills in our TVET and universities in Kenya by forming the National Skills and Funding Council. That will make it possible for us to predict adequate funding for all the courses that will be taught in our universities, so that we improve on the quality, because if you need 100% to teach a certain course and you have only provided 57%, then it means the balance, since the university doesn't have the money, you pay 57% of salaries, as is being done in Egerton, and somebody who has been paid half his salary, if you expect them to deploy their whole skill there, is expecting too much. Secondly, we will cut, universities will cut corners, and finally, we will reduce or we will lower the quality of our graduates. I do not think that's the way the country wants to go. So we have concrete interventions that we are suggesting and that will be implemented by Kenya Kwanza. And finally, as has been recommended here, we will raise our research fund from the current 0.8% to 2% as is required by the law. So, ladies and gentlemen, This discussion could not have been better. I think we have gotten the best brains, and I want to thank the men and women who have spent 4 months working on this document and benefiting from the input of the many fora that we have attended across the country, and of course